G'day. Okay. So, I'm recording this like literally an hour after school, so I really doubt we're gonna get any people watching. So I might send this to Alex. Whether he'll watch, I don't know. But what I do know is that we have a biology exam. So, what I have done is I have just dumped everything that I know from this topic onto a whiteboard. And this might look like a bunch of madmen writing, that's because it is. But let me just quickly go through all of this. And you guys probably can't read the whiteboard unless you have like super laser focus eyes. So let me quickly break everything down. So you have a primary protein structure here, which is a bunch of amino acids joined together. And this is what an amino acid looks like. You have your carbon, your amine group, your side group, and your carboxyl group. And the way that they bond is through the C there of the carboxyl group and the N in the amine group, so the nitrogen and the carbon. So the secondary isn't technically a thing. Secondary protein structure describes it when hydrogen bonds begin to form between the amino acids, and these hydrogen bonds either will coil up into an alpha coil or will form beta pleated sheets. So two, I guess, terms to get memorized there. Alpha coil or beta pleated sheets. The tertiary structure is a legendary one. The hydrogen bonds continue to form, and they are easily broken. Disulfide bridges begin to form between the cysteine, I think that's how you pronounce it, cysteine, the cysteine amino acids, and then amino ionic bonds form between the positive and negative charges. So hydrogen, ionic, and disulfide. And also, basically the tertiary structure in summary is when these coils or sheets begin to coil even more. So it joins together, hydrogen bonds form, and then it coils. And finally, the fourth protein structure, the fourth and final one, is where several of these tertiary structures of polypeptides are held together. So there you go. So primary is amino acids bonded together through condensation reactions. Secondary is when hydrogen bonds begin to form into either alpha or beta coils or sheets. Tertiary is when these coils are folded even further. And the final one is where it's several of them. So hopefully that made sense. And that's basically it for proteins. I don't think there's a single other thing we need to know. There are tests. There is the Biuret test for proteins, where it goes purple if it's a protein. You might be asked in an exam, maybe if you do a Biuret test on an enzyme or something like that, what colour would it change? And you would obviously say purple, because purple proteins. We did this in GCSEs, so everyone should know that. But anyways, moving on to enzymes. So enzymes are obviously proteins of the, I guess, several polypeptide chains held together. And enzymes reduce the activation energy, so they are biological catalysts. And it's important that they obviously exist. You might, I don't know, will they give you like a question about the importance of enzymes? Well, it's important that they occur because obviously it reduces the activation energy, basically providing an alternate pathway for reactions to occur. Now, what we have here is the lock and key method. So you have your enzyme, the active site, I guess would be like this bit here. Then you have a substrate. They kind of bind together and form an enzyme substrate complex. That is a a three-word that you need to know. Enzyme substrate complex, which is shown here. Then you get your products. Super easy. There is another method, well, a model of enzyme activity, and it's called the induced fit model. And what it says is that the enzyme, the active site of the enzyme basically fits to, basically it changes to fit the specific substrate. So it kind of adapts. It's not just one static kind of position. Now, inhibitors basically are just substrates that stay there. They stay there, they lock on, and they prevent actual substrates from forming an enzyme-substrate complex. Factors that influence or affect enzyme activity, you got temperature, that's the optimum there, pH, and you need to obviously probably be able to describe why these factors are important. Just talk about the disulfide bridges. I mean, think about it. If the temperature increases, it's going to break apart the disulfide bridges. The hydrogen bonds are going to break because they're easily broken. And the ionic bonds are easily affected by pH changes. So important there to talk about. The more enzymes there are, obviously the faster rate of reaction. The more substrates there will be an increase in reaction until there are no more enzymes, or until there are no more substrates, vice versa. That was 7 minutes there, and I just relayed the entire subject. So if Alex or whoever is watching this, when I send the link, if you understood any of that, let me know, because I can understand that, but obviously you might need it, you might need to, put some stuff in your own terms. But just to go through it quickly, primary is amino acids formed together, bonded together at the amine and carboxyl group, joined together by a condensation reaction, okay? So that's the primary structure. The secondary structure is when hydrogen bonds begin to form between the amino acids. I say that, but I'm pretty sure they also just kind of form outwards, which is why it coils, stuff like that. So hydrogen bonds begin to form in the amino acids, which causes it to coil or become beta-pleated sheets. Tertiary structure is when these coils fold even further to get more hydrogen bonds, disulfide bridges, and ionic bonds. And the final one is where it's several of those. So there you go. Almost 10 minutes in and we've done the whole topic. Now let's do some questions. Okay. Now, honestly, some of these questions I'm not going to know. Because this is all that I know of the subject. You guys need to think. Our teacher isn't the best. And by that what I mean is, there is a lot of content in enzymes that I have literally only found out today, such as inhibitors. So I'll be completely real with you guys and say that I might not get many of these right. And I really don't care, because that's the whole thing, isn't it? You need to get stuff wrong to get it right. I mean, in the most recent exam, I literally got 92% because I did so many past paper questions and a bunch just came up. But I probably would have gotten them right nonetheless because I revised. You guys need to remember revision is actually useful. I didn't really think revision was important, but then I started to revise chemistry and I understood it tenfold. Same with biology. If I didn't teach myself all of the biology stuff a week before the exam, I would have failed biology. So revision is actually important. Anyways, describe the induced fit model of enzyme action and how an enzyme acts as a catalyst. Okay, so it's asking us for two things there. What is the induced fit model? And how does an enzyme act as a catalyst? Okay, so obviously what we will say there, I mean, there's a couple things, but I'm going to put for. Now again, I don't really know too much about the specifics of this, so I'm just going to kind of put my own words here. So, the enzyme, so the substrate and enzyme kind of, I guess, join together. The enzyme active site changes to fit substrate. Then when that happens, it forms the enzyme substrate complex, and then you get your products. And that is because the activation energy is reduced. So it catalyzes reaction. That is what I think. That is all I know about that. So let's check the mark scheme. Okay, we got a lot here. The substrate binds to the active site. Okay. All I said there was substrate and enzyme join. So substrate and enzyme bind. The enzyme substrate complex forms, but that's only worth 1 mark, I believe. Aha! I forgot a really important word. Okay. So that would have been 1 mark, saying that the substrate and the enzyme bind to form an enzyme substrate complex. That would be 1 mark, which is really nasty. I forgot to mention, so obviously I said that this changes to fit shape, but I had to mention that it was complementary. That is a word that we get told so many times that it slips your mind. Complementary. So the active site changes shape, and it says here slightly, so it's not like changing shape massively, it's changing shape slightly. The active site slightly changes shape, so it's complementary to the substrate. Alright, that is a really good point. I'm even going to put that here. Complementary. So there, that was a mark that I would have dropped there. Because while I did mention that it changes shape to fit the substrate, I did not use the important word. The active site changes shape, so distorting, breaking, forming bonds, and it reduces activation energy. Activation energy is reduced. Okay. So I would have gotten 2 marks there. Maybe 1 if you're being really harsh, because I did get that bit right, but I didn't. I would have gotten 2 marks. 2 out of 3. So let's do that question again, just covering my eyes here so that I'm not cheating. So I completely forgot what the question was, actually. Let me read it again. The induced fit model and how an enzyme acts as a catalyst. So the enzyme and the substrate bind together to form an enzyme substrate complex. The enzyme then changes shape slightly so that it is complementary with the substrate, and this reduces the activation energy needed to catalyze a reaction. Great. Next one. Scientists investigated the action of the enzyme ATP synthase. They made reaction mixtures, each containing ATP synthase, buffer, and substrates. One of these substrates required in the reaction is an inorganic phosphate. Tick the box to show which other substrate the scientists must add to produce ATP. So ATP synthase, buffer, oh, okay. I feel like that bit there about an inorganic phosphate. I think it's adenosine diphosphate, right? Because you got ATP synthase, That one is... that one, bro, they took up half a page for a 1 mark tick box question. That is stupid as shit. It's adenosine diphosphate. So adenosine diphosphate plus ATP synthase plus buffer plus just... That one I don't really understand. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't really understand that one still. But it's a mark. I'm not going to sweat that. The scientists investigated the effect of inorganic phosphate on ATP synthase. So ATP synthase is an enzyme. After 2 minutes, they stopped each reaction. Suggest and explain a procedure the scientists could have used to stop each reaction. Okay, if you want to stop the reaction, surely that would be using inhibitors. Surely that's where the knowledge of inhibitors comes in handy. You would use inhibitors as they would stop the active... They would bind with the active site to prevent any further substrates binding with it. That's my guess. It was way more obvious, and honestly, I did think this off the top of my head. You could boil or add an acid, because obviously that would denature the enzyme. It does say you could add a high concentration of inhibitor so that the enzyme substrate complex doesn't form. I would have probably gotten both marks there, but for logical reasons, I'm not going to give myself a mark because there was a way more obvious answer. If you want to stop an enzyme reaction, just boil the shit out of it. Explain the change in ATP concentration with increasing inorganic phosphate. So, as time goes on, there is more ATP produced and the concentration... So, basically what you're doing is you're adding more substrates. You're adding more substrates, but there aren't enough enzymes to do it all, maybe? Like, to react with it all? Yeah, whoa, I would have gotten some of that, right? All active sites are occupied above 40 mol. Because there, you see, after 40 mol, the graph literally goes straight. So there... A better way of saying this would be, once it reaches 40 mol decimeter minus 3, once the concentration of PI goes up to 40, the active sites would all be occupied with the enzyme's active sites, while the ATP synthase active sites would all be occupied with the inorganic phosphate, so they could not produce a higher amount, a greater amount of ATP. I think that question makes sense. It's just tough to explain. All it is showing is this graph here. You're adding more substrates, but you're not adding any more enzymes, so eventually the graph will plateau out. That one is so nice, but tough to explain. So with the increasing PI concentration, more enzyme substrate complexes are formed. So here, I'm going to annotate this. So more enzyme substrate complexes form, but then eventually all active sites are occupied. There are 20 pages of enzyme questions, by the way. We're going to be here for some time. So sit back, grab a little drink or something. A student investigated starch hydrolysis using the enzyme amylase. Okay. That makes sense. When you break down starch, you're obviously going to get glucose. Amylase breaks down starch. Okay, I'm just relaying stuff that I know off the top of my head there. During the procedure, the student will treat the starch to make it soluble. That makes sense. Starch is insoluble. Prepare 10 centimeters cubed of different concentrations of starch solution. Add an identical concentration of amylase and measure... Okay, so it's the milk practical that we were doing, except with starch instead of milk and amylase instead of whatever enzyme we were using. Nice. Draw a table. Oh, he repeated the procedure and calculated a mean time to completely hydrolyze starch. Draw a table for 2 marks. Oh, okay. This is kind of a unique question. I don't think we've ever been asked to plot a table before. So there you would get your... Maybe we'll say 10 centimeter cube. Okay, we'll put starch concentration. Starch concentration in centimeter cubed. So it will go up in 10, 20, 30, 40, and maybe 50. And then it would just be time 1 in seconds. Would it be seconds? I think I know how to do this. I just can't be bothered to draw it. Let's check. Starch solution is first column. Headings for starch and mean time for starch. Oh, this one is really ugly. This one's really weird. It doesn't even give you a nice thing for the mark scheme. I think I would understand how to do that though, and maybe get a mark. But I think having to plot a table, a little annoying. Okay. Describe the results you would expect the student to obtain. Okay. Isn't this just kind of a repeat of that question? The more substrate, starch, that you add, you're going to get more, a higher reaction up until a certain point where the time is going to be the same because the time will be longer because you have more active sites. So to begin with, it's going to be happening quite quickly. You're going to have quite a quick reaction time because there's only a little bit of starch and a lot of amylase. Eventually, there will be a lot of starch and still a little bit of amylase, so it's going to take longer. I feel like that's a very valid conclusion to make. As starch concentration increases, time to hydrolyze / digest starch increases. That's literally exactly what I would have put. And that was only 1 mark, really. Okay, well, I misinterpreted that as being like a 3 mark question there. That's kind of why I rambled there. But yeah, as the time increases, so too will the rate of reaction. Now I'm cheating by accident. A competitive inhibitor decreases the rate of an enzyme control reaction. Okay, well, I'm just going to use purely this diagram here. The inhibitor will bind with the active site and will prevent substrates from binding with it, preventing an enzyme-substrate complex being formed. It fits/binds to the active site. It prevents the enzyme-substrate complex forming. Okay, 2 marks out of 3. The only other thing I would have had to say, which I did not know, is that it is complementary. Beautiful. I would have gotten 2 marks for that. Easy. Enzyme substrate complex forms. You will probably always get a mark for mentioning that. And you will probably always get a mark for talking about it being complementary. There you go. That was the point of watching this stream. You just picked up some important little tips there. Number 1, mention it being complementary, because that's 3 questions now where that's been an important highlight to get marks. Mention an enzyme substrate complex. Definitely. You'll probably get marks for that. And also, you need to obviously probably know these graphs quite well. I'm disappointed that all we're doing at enzyme stuff right now. I feel like there should be more protein questions. Unless the protein stuff is completely useless. When bread becomes stale, the structure of some of the starch is changed. This changed starch is called retrograded starch. Okay. Scientists have suggested retrograded starch is a competitive inhibitor of amylase in the small intestine. Suggest how eating stale bread could reduce weight gain. Okay, this is how many marks? 6? Oh, 3. Okay, great. I was about to go all in there. Piss off. Okay, so if retrograded starch is a competitive inhibitor, this means when eating the bread, the starch will not be obviously what we've just said there. If it's a competitive inhibitor, it will bind with the active site because it's complementary, but a product will not be created. An enzyme substrate complex will not be created, so there will be no weight gain because no glucose is being formed, no sugar is being formed. I probably wouldn't have gotten any marks there, but I was on the right track. Okay, I basically condensed all of my points into one point there. Less hydrolysis of starch. I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, it's a hydrolysis enzyme. It breaks it down. Okay, there you go. There's another point. Mention hydrolysis. Because that's basically what this is. This is basically hydrolysis. Okay, so there is no hydrolysis of starch, which means that it won't turn into maltose, and that means that there is less absorption of glucose. Okay, that one was quite interesting. That was honestly an interesting little question there, because it has you thinking about a lot of things. I feel like I would have maybe gotten 1 or 2 more marks if we've done the digestion topic. Because obviously then I would have kind of put 2 and 2 together. It's maltose. It's made out of glucose. 2 glucose is maltose. I would have probably got that. So yeah, you have your insoluble starch. It can't be you have your starch acting as an inhibitor, so it completely so it can't hydrolyze. That was an interesting little question there. 3 marks, I probably would have gotten 1. Oh, this is gonna be good. Not for me, but this will be good for information. Describe how the structure of a protein depends on the amino acids that it contains. No idea. All I know is obviously disulfide bridges are when there are cysteine amino acids. How many marks? 5? Bruh, okay, give me your knowledge. What do I have to learn here? Huh. It's all stuff that I know. Okay, moral of the story there, guys. If you think you don't know something, you maybe do. How the structure of a protein depends on the amino acids it contains. This one makes sense now looking at the mark scheme. All it's on about is these. This is amino acid 1, amino acid 3, 7, 8. If you change these around, you're obviously going to get a different protein. So a structure is determined by the position of amino acid interactions. Or hydrogen bonds. So it's determined by the position of the hydrogen bonds in the amino acids. The primary structure is a sequence of amino acids. Okay, well, yeah, we know that. A primary structure is a sequence of amino acids. If they are in a different order, or it's different amino acids, obviously it's going to create a different protein. The secondary structure is formed by hydrogen bonding between the amino acids. All this is really coming back to is protein structure, which I know. So all you really have to say is the protein structure is affected by the primary structure having different amino acids. A tertiary structure is formed by interactions between the R groups. Okay, so here, enzymes, well, amino acids all have different R groups. So, obviously, by having different R groups, you're going to have a different tertiary structure. The primary structure is affected by the order of amino acids. That one, honestly, sucks to explain. Because I knew all of this, and I would have gotten 0 marks. Because I misread maybe the question, or I couldn't put it into words, which sucks. That is it's an awful feeling in an exam when you get asked a question on something that you know, but you can't put it into words because of what it's asking you. And that is a perfect example. We know that the primary structure of a protein is amino acids, and obviously if those amino acids are different, you're going to get a different R group interaction. And a different R group interaction means different tertiary structure, but to put that into words is tough. So I would have gotten no marks for that. We get a SGLT1 carrier protein. Figure 1 shows the polypeptide with N2 at one end, so the amine group, and a carboxyl group at the other. Describe how amino acids join to form polypeptide, so there is always an NH2 at one end. Oh, this is a lovely one. You may use a diagram. This is 2 marks. Okay. Surely I could just have a little diagram then. You got your amine group here, you got your carbon group, you got your R group, you got your hydrogen group, and then it's and this bit I always draw wrong, so I'm going to have to cheat here. There. And then during a hydrolysis condensation, a water molecule is eliminated, so that's 2 H's and an O. So then it joins up to NH C. Okay, I could easily draw that. All it's really saying is that a condensation reaction occurs so that the COOH and the amine group join together, so that the amine group is always at the end, the carboxyl group is always at the front. At least 2 amino acids drawing with, ignore incorrect names. So 1 amine group joins to a carboxyl group to form a peptide bond. That is all you would have had to say, bro. I rambled there. Yeah. An amine group joins. Alright, well that is easy as shit. Explain how the active site of an enzyme causes a high rate of reaction. Oh. 3 marks. Okay. Well, let's think about this. High rate of reaction because the substrate binds with the enzyme to form the complementary substrate binds with the enzyme's active site to form an enzyme substrate complex. This then reduces the activation energy required for the reaction to occur. So a product released, the products are made more quickly, because I don't know. What do you put? It lowers the activation energy. Okay, there's some content I didn't know here. The activation energy is lowered, so I would have gotten 1 mark out of 3. The induced fit causes the active site to change shape. I didn't put that, but honestly, I didn't really know that that's the model we were going with. And the enzyme substrate complex causes bonds to break. Okay, so I'll just put there, the enzyme substrate complex causes bonds break. I'm about maybe almost halfway through with these now. I'm probably going to stop at the halfway point for today, and we'll do the other half tomorrow. Okay. The action of the enzyme catalase is shown below. We got hydrogen peroxide. Catalase puts it into water and oxygen. A student investigated the effect of hydrogen peroxide concentration on the rate of this reaction. He used catalase from potato tissue. So you put 5 potato chips in a flask, add some hydrogen peroxide, measure the time in seconds for it to produce oxygen, and repeat this with different concentrations of hydrogen peroxide. Other than those stated, give one factor the student would have controlled. Probably the mass of the potato chips. Mass of potato chips. Yeah, size, dimensions, mass, variety of potato. Obviously, temperature and pH. It's an enzyme reaction. Always mention temperature and pH if it's an enzyme control reaction. The student gave the maximum rate of reaction to 1.0 arbitrary units. Complete the table above by calculating the rate of reaction. Oof. I don't really recall what that is. Let's check. Would it be... How would you calculate the rate of reaction in arbitrary units? Let's try to figure this out. 2.5 divided by 6 is like 3.5, something like that. How would you do this? Would you... Got it. Maybe. Do I have it? No, I fucking don't. Fuck. I was gonna say, would you not multiply by 10? So you got 0.5 times 10, and then do 18 divided by 5. What? Number 2. Number 2 is 0.6. No idea. I have no idea. Literally no idea how you would do that one. Why would you divide 6 by the time? Oh, okay, this one I genuinely do not know. This is like that one question. Why would you divide 6 by the time? Or more specifically, how would you get from 18? Why would you divide 6 by the time? Okay, that is where we're stopping because that is just completely confused the hell out of me. Okay, let's just do a tiny quick little thing. So, important things to remember. Talk about it being complementary, talk about the enzyme substrate complex, talk about how the enzyme substrate complex breaks bonds. Reg quit the question. Honestly, that question made no sense. What the hell? Enzyme substrate complex breaks the bonds. When talking about substrate concentration, obviously to begin with, there are more enzyme substrate complexes being formed, but as time goes on, all the active sites are going to be occupied. Primary structure is the basically what a child. Okay, great. The primary structure is a sequence of amino acids. Secondary structure is when hydrogen bonds form, so it's either an alpha coil or a beta pleated sheet. The tertiary structure is when those coils are folded even further. Hydrogen bonds form, but they are easily broken. Disulfide bridges form between the cysteine amino acids, and ionic bonds occur between the positive and negative charges, but they are easily broken by changes in pH. The final structure is when several polypeptide chains are held together. When talking about enzymes and rate of activity, you can always refer to temperature and pH. If you're talking about bonding, make sure to talk about the fact the amine group always bonds with a carboxyl group. There you go. 45 minutes of revision there, and hopefully, I definitely learned something. Hopefully you guys did. That was interesting. Some really weird-ass questions there, though, that I would never have understood, and I still don't understand. I guess because we haven't done any calculations in enzymes. Because you guys have to remember, we have a pretty bad teacher. We have a pretty bad teacher in terms of this topic. I am honestly having to go out on my own and research a lot of this content on my own, which is definitely something you should not be doing, in A-level, but screw it, I guess, right? So yeah, unfortunately, that's kind of the situation I'm at. But I feel like I have a pretty solid understanding of protein structure. Having to put some of it in words is a little tricky still. I think talking about the primary structure and how that links to the overall structure is very tricky. And I think in an exam, I probably wouldn't do that well on questions about it. I definitely think I would get a lot of marks for the enzyme stuff now that I know what to talk about. I probably won't send this stream to Alex because 45 minutes, but I don't know. I don't know if I can be bothered to prepare notes, but I'll make like a little spreadsheet or something. Anyways, thank you guys for watching.